In this video, we're going to be going over some ways to give you the best chance possible on becoming a pro here in Rainbow Six Siege. Hey everybody, Jeff here, and today we're going over a list I made on some of the best things to work on if you want any chance on climbing the ranks and becoming a pro in this game. So I'm assuming if you have any aspirations of going pro, you must have watched a pro league game, whether it was on a YouTube clips or on stream, and you thought to yourself, hey, that looks like an amazing experience and I want in. What do I have to do to become one of them? Well, I'll tell you what, man, not a single player on any roster in Pro League got there by taking things halfway. They devoted 110% of their time and energy into becoming a pro. So my first tip for you guys is you must be well versed in what Pro League is. You need to watch Pro League matches, watch the best of the best, create strategies, develop them on the fly, and keeping up with the most current meta in the game. If you're having the seeds planted in your mind about possibly going pro and you're not watching Pro League, you need to start. Now, I want to start off this video on things that you should naturally be getting better at in the game just by playing. And later in the video, go over some mechanic training strategies like sensitivity and different drills and all that. But right now, we're going to stick on the topic of things that you should naturally get better on. Now, one thing you should naturally get better at over time, and it's really hard to teach, is the art of game sense. You acquire this by literally just playing the game. If you are unfamiliar with what game sense is, I'm going to give you a couple examples. Like, one is to quickly decide if you need to push a player versus stay back given the situation at hand. Another one is audio cues, determining where they are around you, how far away it is, and even what surface they're walking or running on. A good example of this is the rafters in Garage on the map Clubhouse. It makes a very distinct noise if someone is walking or running on those rafters, and there are a lot of different floor surfaces in the game, so once you can learn those two, it's another thing that you can use to your arsenal on learning where the enemy's location is. Another example of game sense is how the majority of players in your rank attack or defend a certain site. You should be able to tell me right now on what a typical attack and defense looks like on, like, let's say hookah. You should be able to tell me what the key areas of the map that offense or defense are going to be fighting over, and generally where enemies are going to be throughout the map. Once you learn where attackers are typically going to be pushing from, what areas of the map, what rooms they're going to want to secure first, and also on defense, what rooms they're going to want to hold on to, where the roamers are more likely to be. Once you learn all that, it's going to make pre-firing and developing strategies much easier. Those are examples of game sense. That's not something you can necessarily work on. Yeah, you can have people tell you that stuff, like generally where people are going to be, but really that's stuff that you acquire just by playing the game over time. Oh yeah, one thing I want to talk about before I really head into like the nitty-gritty like mechanics and sensitivity strategies is, guys, I'm sorry, but if you're playing on console and you truly do want to become a pro league player, you have to ditch your console and get a PC. The reason why I say this is because no pro league player plays on console, and if you hook up a controller to a PC and play against pro league players who are playing on mouse and keyboard, you know that's not going to work. You already know that mouse and keyboard is a huge advantage over console. You're at a 0% chance of becoming a pro if you don't get yourself a PC. Now, I know that PCs are very expensive, but they don't necessarily have to be. Lucky for us, Rainbow Six Siege isn't a very demanding game, so you could actually get away with a pretty decent budget build and still have a good chance of becoming really good. Now, if you console guys don't know much about PCs, I'm gonna put a list in the comments. I'm gonna ping it on a budget build for a list of parts that hopefully isn't gonna be super expensive. Now, since COVID is a thing right now, prices for all these parts are going to be really high. They're going to be inflated. So once COVID dies down a little bit, hopefully once it dies down a little bit, the prices for these parts are going to go down a lot. Okay, now let's finally get into some things that you could 100% improve on if you put the time into it. Now, it's very obvious that aim and mechanical movement is something that you must master. You can't just be good at it or great at it. You have to completely master aim and mechanics if you want a chance on becoming a pro. Now, I bet if you're watching this video, you're probably someone who's not so much casual anymore. You're probably someone who invests some, maybe even a lot of time into getting better, and you probably might even hop into T-Hunt a couple matches before you hop into a ranked match. But I'm going to tell you that you're probably doing T-Hunt wrong. Odds are you're probably just hopping into T-Hunt just to warm up. But honestly, when you go into T-Hunt, you need to focus on a certain mechanic that you want to improve on, instead of just going in there just shooting the place up. What I mean by this is you got to go in working on a certain mechanic. Are you trying to improve on 180 flicks? Are you trying to improve on snap-on headshots. Now in the background gameplay, I've been showing me on working some of my mechanics in T-Hunting as well. Notice I'm playing how I'm working on my 180 flicks. I do this because in game, if I get the call out or I find out that someone's behind me, I know exactly how far I need to move my mouse across my mouse pad if I want to land that 180 flick shot. And on house, I'm practicing my snap-on headshots. So this is something where if you're aiming directly in front of your screen, if an enemy comes off from the side of your screen, you know exactly how far you have to move your mouse across your mouse pad if you want to get that really precise, really quick snap onto that person's head. Now, obviously, I still suck at this because you're watching the gameplay. I'm terrible, but at least I know it's something that I'm weak at that I need to improve on. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is you're not really increasing your skill set by just running around, just shooting the place up, because you're not really focusing on a certain mechanic until you master it. Now, this also applies to athletes. Basketball players will sit there for 4 or 5 hours at a time shooting free throws, improving them, and also if they're a three-point shooter, they're going to be at the three-point line shooting those as well until their muscle memory knows exactly what form and how hard they need to shoot the ball. This applies to pro gaming as well. If you have the opportunity to play with people who are better than you, 100% take that opportunity. If you have friends or people who are a higher rank than you and you're able to play ranked with them or unranked, do that, because you are going to learn so much more than what the rank you are in right now. Whether it's new strategies that you didn't know about, new lines of sights, different types of callouts or metas, it's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily know if you were at your normal rank, but since you're playing with people who are better than you and the competition is greater, you're going to improve much faster. Oh yeah, stop changing your sensitivity every time where you do bad or you're in a slump. If you haven't noticed yet, one of the main topics about this video and going pro is muscle memory, and you're never really going to learn that muscle memory if you're constantly messing up with your sensitivity. I'm going to show you guys the general rule of thumb on what your sensitivity should look like for PC players. Okay, so I know my desk is really messy, like I'm sorry about that, but I need to clean it. But I want to show you guys like what I mean by like the general rule of thumb on what your sensitivity should kind of look like if you wanted to move over to the whole arm movement method that most pro players use. Most pro players use whole arm movements if they're flicking across their mouse pad rather than tiny wrist movements, because you are way more likely to mess up due to the slight imperfection of a wrist movement rather than like a whole arm movement that like you could build up really good muscle memory with. So let's look at, so this is kind of hard to do my left hand and my right hand like this and aiming at the screen. So right now I am aiming directly at this fire truck, and I'm gonna put my mouse all the way on the left side of my mouse pad. I'm gonna drag all the way across, and if I drag all the way across, I should be aiming right back at the fire truck. So a good general rule of thumb is if you're un-ADSing, really for any first-person shooter, you should be able to complete a whole 360 with one swipe of your mouse pad, your available mouse pad. I'm sorry, I was down some. Now, if you are aiming in, if you're ADSing, you should be able to do a complete 180 with it, and that's exactly where I am over here. I'm doing a complete 180. So I'm gonna head back over here, do a all the way back forth, and I should be back at the same fire truck. That's a good general rule of thumb because now you're able to know exactly where you need to be. And then if you feel like it's too fast or too slow, go ahead and just increase it by a little bit or decrease it by a little bit and do what works best for you. Now, this is generally what's going to work best for you, not another pro or another YouTuber sensitivity, because that's what works for them. It may not work for you. Okay, quickly, I want to talk about how you need to find like a really small team, like a small organization who does scrimmages and has like a little league of their own. You can easily find teams like this like all over Reddit, Instagram, or Google. But the reason why I say this is because you need to get your feet wet and learn what it's like to have a schedule, have scrimmages, practices with the team. Small teams like this often have like a set schedule where you need to practice for this many hours a day or this many hours a week. You need to be available for these certain scrimmages, practices, and matches that take place in the league. And it shows you what it's like to be a pro, to have a set schedule if you're trying to go pro. Playing matches with a team like this in like a small organization is a lot different than playing in ranked. The reason why is because it's a lot more competitive. Communication strategies are going to be a lot more prevalent. The stakes are higher, and honestly, just everyone's sweaty. Now, you may hop in a team like this, put yourself to a schedule, and realize that you don't necessarily even like it. A lot of pros say that they lose the fun aspect to the game because when it becomes their livelihood, like pros, they are full-time devoted to this game. They only play Rainbow Six Siege. They do it competitively, mastering their skills. Eventually, it stops becoming a video game that you play for fun, and it becomes a video game that you play to get better at, and it becomes work. Now, if this happens to you when you join one of these small teams and like these small leagues, and if it happens to you that you start to lose that fun aspect, you're not really enjoying the game anymore, and you're just playing it for work, and you kind of lose that passion to play it, it's 100% fine. It happens to a lot of people, and that may even be a good thing because now you know, hey, being a pro isn't necessarily what I want to do. Now you can focus on other things if you want to stay in the gaming industry, like content creation, streaming, like stuff like that. Okay, one thing that I was probably going to leave out, but I felt like I should probably actually add in the video, is some people, no matter how hard they try, no matter how much time they put into the game, they will simply never be good enough to be a pro. You need to have like a certain natural talent for video games, and more specifically Rainbow Six Siege. You can practice all the time, dump the countless hours into practicing, but you may never get better, and it might not even be your fault. Some people are just limited with their reaction times or their ability to move their hands or fingers where they want in a quick manner. Also, another thing is how quick someone is able to analyze a situation, make a decision, and implement it by moving their mouse and keyboard or whatever is unique to the individual, and some people for some reason just don't have the ability to be able to do that quick and efficiently. Also, I'm really sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but another thing too is age plays a factor as well. It's science that the older you get, the more you age, the slower your reaction time is. Just as you age, the speed it takes from neurons to send information from your brain down your spinal cord into the complex system of your extremities, like neurologically, it just slows, and it's something that older people just can't help. Okay, my last tip here for you guys is you truly, like really need to passionately believe that you can become a pro. You don't just do it halfway. You don't just log on for 2-3 hours of ranked at a time and call it good. Like, I'll become a pro if I play ranked for 2 or 3 hours a day. That's not going to happen because you're not increasing the core mechanics of the game and some other really vital parts that you need to improve on. Like when I say you need to put a lot of time in the game, like you need to put a lot of time into the game. Like it's almost a full-time job, 100% committed on just getting better. I guarantee you that every Siege pro out there dumps the insane amount of time, and it took a long time to get better at the game to eventually get noticed by organizations, build up somewhat of a following, and it just takes a lot of time. Okay, you gotta be patient. It does take time, but also they have spent a crazy amount of time working on it as well. Like some of them spend more time in custom matches and terrace hunt than they actually do playing the game. Now I'm really hopeful that Ubisoft adds a lot better of a training mechanic. Like Valorant has a pretty decent training area, and in Siege we still have terrace hunt after 5 years into the game. It's pretty much all we get for training, and I feel like once Ubisoft implements a much better training UI, like a training experience, then it might be a lot easier and a lot quicker to become better at the game. Well, that's all I got for you. Now it's your turn to tell me something. Did this video help you in the decision of going pro, and did you learn anything from it? You can let me know by leaving a comment down below. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe with the notifications if you're new. Now with all that being said, Jeppy out!